Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 204, The Big Balloon Blow Up. The episode begins with Ash and the gang walking through an open field when they suddenly come across an X on the ground, contained inside a circle. It was huge and looked very out of place, so Ash and the gang obviously questioned what it was, with Ash assuming that it may have meant a no parking zone, but with Brock assuming that it could be a crop circle made by a UFO. Of course he'd believe that, wouldn't he? Just then, Ash and the gang get annoyed as something that seemed like a ball with a leaf-like tail connected on it dropped on them. They immediately duck down, thinking that whatever this annoying thing was that just almost knocked them out by landing on them could have been a bomb sent by Team Rocket, as Team Rocket had tried to do shit like that before. However, after Ash and the gang remained ducked for a few seconds, they realized that it probably wasn't a bomb. So they got back up and directed their attention to the sky to try and find where this item had came from. The source of where the item came from was then revealed as Ash spotted a balloon in the distance that resembled a Fearow and was also being pulled by a Fearow. Soon, the balloon lands on the red X, and a boy comes out, apologizing to Ash and the gang for dropping that ball on them, and revealing that his name was Skylar, explaining that the X was meant as a target for him to land his balloon on as he was practicing for an upcoming Pokemon balloon race competition. Further clarifying that he'd been training himself in hot air balloon flights for many years and enjoyed it so much that he decided to turn his balloon racing into a career, which was why he wanted to enter all the contests. He then introduced Ash and the gang to his Fearow, explaining that he was only able to make balloon racing a career thanks to his Fearow, which had evolved from a Spearow immediately after he started practicing, due to the intense flying skills that were needed. Ash and the gang did not know that balloon racing was that big of an activity that one could make a career out of it, leading Skylar to explain that there was more than one career you could make out of balloon racing, the other career being balloon designing, which was what his father, Tenma, was doing. Ash and the gang were intrigued to see some of the balloon designs, so Skylar agreed to take them to his father's air hangar, which also acted as his designing garage. Upon entering the air hangar, Ash and the gang immediately see Tenma, who was busy still designing balloons for people to use in the upcoming race, which Skylar clarified was tomorrow. Tenma then greets Ash and the gang and shows them several of his previous designs, explaining that he purposely modeled all of the balloons after Pokemon, just like how his son's was modeled after his Fearow. He then showed Ash and the gang a picture gallery of several of the balloons that he had designed, which resemble the Magnemite, Sunflora, Igglybuff, Shuckle, Wooper, Skiploom, Phanpy. Ash and the gang were immediately impressed by all of these designs, and it got Ash super hyped up as he wished that he could see them in action. Skylar clarified that he could if he watched the race tomorrow, but suggested that if he wanted the true close-up experience, then he should join the race himself and compete. Thanks to that invitation from Skylar, Ash instantly now wanted to join the race so that he could win. However, much to Ash's dismay, Brock reminded him that they didn't have an air balloon that they could use. Ash got depressed, but thankfully, Tenma agreed to lend Ash and the gang one of his balloons that they could use for the race, and coincidentally, this balloon happened to be designed like a Pikachu, much to Ash's Pikachu's delight. Skylar then suggested that Ash and the gang get in some practice before the race, and told them that he would practice with them. So, Ash and the gang took the balloon out and lifted it up into the sky to get a feel for it, before beginning the actual training that was more in line with the race, as Skylar explained, along with his father, what the training would entail, adding that it was the usual training that Skylar did almost every day, essentially. The goal was to fly to the X target and throw the ball with a tail attached to it as close as possible to the target's center. Ash and the gang were initially going to go do this by just having the air drag along their balloon to the target, but Skylar and his Fearow were racing to the target a whole lot faster, leading Skylar to suggest that Ash and the gang use a Pokemon to pull their balloon faster like he did. Ash and Brock are about to oblige to Skylar's suggestion as they contemplate sending out either Crobat or Noctowl, but Skylar insists that he should show them an example of how a Pokemon pulls a balloon first, explaining that it wasn't as simple as just merely sending one out and having it pull, clarifying that the Pokemon needed to be able to feel the wind so they knew the correct speed to go, as well as when to lift up or descend, explaining that traveling certain speeds at certain wind conditions could be very disastrous. Skylar then begins to demonstrate the proper flying techniques with his Fearow as he tosses Fearow a ring, and Fearow grasps onto it, and since the ring was tied to the balloon, this allows Fearow to drag the balloon at the appropriate speeds, according to the wind, which it was able to sense due to flying for so long. Ash assumes that dragging the balloon would be as easy for his Noctowl, but he barely paid attention to any of Skylar's actual demonstrations, so he simply just tells Noctowl to fly the balloon as fast as it can when he gives Noctowl the ring, which in turn causes the balloon to start falling down and tilting, since Noctowl was going too fast at the current wind speed. Tenma, who was riding in Skylar's balloon with him, talks to Ash and the gang over a walkie-talkie, informing them to tell Noctowl to slow down a bit, which Ash does, and this causes Noctowl to start pulling the balloon a little slower, so the balloon stops tilting, allowing Brock to ignite the balloon flame, which brings it back up, and the practice race to continue as Fearow still manages to take the lead. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying on Ash and the gang, watching this practice race, and although they weren't very interested in it, because they dealt with balloons all the time, they weren't really at all interested, they did question how Ash managed to get a hold of a balloon in the first place. Just then, though, Meowth came back from his search for food, and although he didn't find any food, he managed to find a pamphlet advertising the upcoming balloon race tomorrow that revealed that the winner of the race would get an advanced burner for their balloon. Jesse and James initially weren't very excited by this either, But when Meowth revealed that this advanced burner would make them immune to Thundershock attacks from Pikachu, they were immediately way more intrigued. Although they were still skeptical about actually participating in the race, since they never seemed to be able to win anything. So they suggested to Meowth that instead of actually entering the race, they merely steal the burner for themselves. Meowth heavily protested this, stating that he wanted to enter the race and win fair and square to boot. Jessie and James knew that Meowth being honorable was very abnormal, so they figured that he might have had a fever, so Jessie went to go get the thermometer. When Jessie used it, she did find out that Meowth's temperature was hot, but that's just because he was super fired up, explaining that the reason why he wanted to win fair and square was because he wanted to prove his skill as a hot air balloon pilot. Jessie and James saw that they had no room to argue with Meowth, so they agreed to enter the race and try and win fair and square. However, they didn't intend to stick to that agreement, as later that night, Jessie and James snuck away from Meowth to the start area of the race, where most of the contestants had already dropped off their balloons in preparation for tomorrow, and proceeded to sabotage all those balloons to ensure that their balloon would win. Now, you may have expected Team Rocket to do something like destroy the balloons or something, but I guess they didn't do that, as the next day, all of the contestants arrived at the site of the race, waiting for the race to begin, as they all got inside their balloons, including Ash and the gang and Skylar and his dad, as Ash and the gang admired a whole bunch of the other balloons. There was a Jinx balloon, a Voltorb balloon, a Hoppip balloon, a Jigglypuff balloon, a whole bunch of them. In fact, dozens for the dozens of contestants. Ash and the gang were still most impressed by Skylar and his dad's Fearow balloon, though. They truly thought it was impeccably designed. Ash and the gang even admitted to Skylar and his dad that they figured they would be able to win, since Skylar and his dad had such good teamwork, which was definitely a requirement to win this race, since it seemed like a lot of people were competing in groups. Of course, one of the contestants competing in a group was Team Rocket, who were able to make a last-minute entry with their Meowth balloon. However, even though many groups were entering, the registration staff told Jessie and James that although they were allowed to race in a group, you could only register one person's name as the owner of the balloon. Since Meowth was the one so insistent on the idea of entering the race, Team Rocket decided to register Meowth as the actual competitor. The registration guide then clarifies that any Pokemon you had helping you could not be registered as the main competitor, which led Meowth to scream at the registration man in anger, countering that he should be the main competitor because he was the one who actually cared about the race and he was the actual pilot of the Meowth balloon. Intimidated by Meowth's talking, the registration man agreed to Meowth's demands. With all of the competitors now registered, everyone heads to the starting line of the race, and Ash and the gang and Skylar and his father wish each other good luck, with Skylar's father assuring Ash and the gang that they should just focus on enjoying the balloon race, stating that it didn't really matter if you won, just if you enjoyed the experience. As Ash and the gang got inside their balloon, they then spotted Team Rocket in their Meowth balloon, and Ash immediately accused them of attempting to cheat in the race somehow, knowing Team Rocket's usual behavior, calling them team losers, stating that there was no way they could win unless they cheated. Meowth got extremely angry at Ash's accusation and explained that he was actually a very skilled balloon pilot, and he would prove how skilled he was by not cheating whatsoever and winning fair and square, just as he intended. Ash and the gang were immensely surprised by what Meowth just said, but they didn't have any further time to question him, as the race then began. Of course, even though Meowth had no intention of cheating, remember that Jessie and James did, and they had sabotaged the balloons. As a result, as soon as the race starts, most of the balloons mysteriously pop, and some of the baskets fall out. As a result, most of the contestants are stranded down below, as most of the balloons were either completely destroyed or had fallen down. The only balloons left were the ones that were not at the start area when Team Rocket sabotaged them. Of course, meaning Team Rocket's balloon, Ash and the gang's balloon, and Skylar and his father's balloon were all safe and sound. Since Skylar's father designed a lot of the balloons, he got nervous that maybe he had done something wrong, and told Ash and the gang to check their equipment of their balloon to make sure that it was safe so that they didn't go plummeting down as well. Ash and the gang did as Skylar's father asked, and found out that there was in fact nothing wrong with their balloon whatsoever, although they were still nervous that they could come crashing down at any moment. Just then, though, Ash and the gang noticed that Team Rocket were also still in the air, so came to the conclusion that Team Rocket must have been the ones to sabotage the balloons, since that was obviously the way more likely scenario than a professional balloon designer messing up so many balloons. Meowth, still not knowing that Jessie and James were responsible for the sabotage, yells at Ash for accusing him and re-clarifies that he was playing by the rules today. Meowth then raises the Meowth balloon with its burner, leading Ash to accuse him of actually cheating, since all of the other competitors had to use Pokémon to guide their balloon up, but Meowth rebutted that he actually wasn't cheating while doing this, since he was a Pokémon, and technically, he was the one moving the balloon up. Jessie and James then taunted Ash and the gang that they were going to win the race, since Meowth was piloting the balloon so good, but Ash just ignored their taunts and tried to catch up. Seeing Meowth lift up the balloon using its burner, Team Rocket assumed that Meowth knew that this was actually cheating, and therefore he had changed his mind and was now open to cheating to win the race. So James decided to cheat further by sending out his Weezing to use Smokescreen to blind Ash and the gang and Skylar and his father, as well as a few other competitors who had managed to somehow get their balloons back up. However, Meowth apparently did not think that him using the burner was cheating, as soon as Meowth saw James send out Weezing, he angrily scolded James for cheating. Meowth then realizes that if James was responsible for cheating right now, then Jessie and James were likely the ones to sabotage the balloons, which he was immensely surprised by, as he originally believed, just like Ash and the gang, that the cause of the crash was truly just some malfunction, or the result of the balloon owners not properly taking care of their equipment. This realization causes Meowth to scream at both Jessie and James, reaffirming that he didn't want to fucking cheat. Meowth didn't think he could get any angrier, but this was proven wrong, as because of Weezing's Smokescreen, Any of the remaining balloons that were in the sky were all knocked out, with the exception of 3, being Ash and the gang's, Skylar and his father's, and 1 other. He yells at both Jesse and James louder than ever before to stop these heinous cheating acts, but Jesse simply ignores him, stating that cheating would make winning the burner way easier, so she decides to send out her Arbok and has it use Poison Sting to shoot the remaining balloons. Skylar and his father command Firo to move their balloon out of the way, and it does so successfully, and Ash and the gang command Noctowl to move their balloon out of the way, and Noctowl does so successfully as well, so they're unaffected by Jesse's Poison Sting. However, the other random racer wasn't so lucky as they went down, and when Meowth saw this, he became more furious than even before, and proceeded to scratch Jesse and James in the face in anger. This painful scratching ends Jesse and James' cheering that they had since gone into after knocking the balloon down, and Jesse and James then demand Meowth to stop scratching them, explaining that they were trying to help him, and with James adding that if Team Rocket didn't cheat, then Meowth would end up being a loser, since he wouldn't be able to win on his own, with just his own skill. Meowth honorably responded that although it may be true that he would likely lose, he wanted to go out with pride and not cheat. Jesse and James were sick of Meowth's honesty and honorableness, knowing that cheating was the only way they could win, so they decided to tie Meowth up to the Meowth balloon so that he could no longer interfere, and so Jesse and James could keep cheating. Just then, Team Rocket's balloon, Ash's balloon, and Skylar's balloon all began approaching a storm. Ash and the gang and Skylar and his father began to panic, but Team Rocket, on the other hand, were not panicking whatsoever, as they could simply cheat their way out of this with Meowth no longer getting in their way. So, James pressed a button on a remote control connected to the Meowth balloon, and this caused a jet engine to appear beneath the balloon, attached to it, which James used to speed up the balloon, sending Team Rocket flying ahead. As for Ash and the gang and Skylar and his father, the storm was not treating them well, as there was immense winds that came with the storm, which were almost throwing Firo and Noctowl off balance. Ash and the gang were desperate, so since they saw that Meowth had already used his burner on their balloon, they decided to use their burner as well. However, when they went to go use it, they found out that the balloon's burner had burnt out, since Arbok's Poison Sting had actually managed to hit the burner and damage it. Ash contacted Skylar and his father on the walkie-talkie to ask them for advice on the situation, leading Skylar's father to tell Ash to simply find a way to reignite the burner. Ash sarcastically thanked Skylar's father for the very useful advice, which he could have just figured out on his own, and decides to send out his Cyndaquil to use Flamethrower on the burner to reignite it. Thankfully, this begins to lift the balloon back up now that the burner was being used. However, Ash and the gang were so occupied with commanding Cyndaquil to use Flamethrower that they didn't notice that their balloon was heading straight for a canyon, and it was plummeting down fast, as the burner wasn't lifting the balloon up fast enough. In a Deus Ex Machina moment, right as the balloon was about to run into the canyon, Ash told Noctowl to fight against the wind and pull up the balloon as best as it could, as Noctowl got some help from Cyndaquil, who used an even more powerful flamethrower to heat up the balloon's burner even more, causing the balloon to rise into the clouds, dodging the canyon as the balloon becomes steady again. Yay! Ash and the gang thought that they could finally breathe again and finally be less nervous, but they still had reason to panic, as even though they were now above the clouds, not in danger of falling, with the help of their jet, Team Rocket was able to gain a significant lead to the point where they were now out of the storm completely. Jesse and James were now extremely confident that they could win, although they were so confident that they decided to stop focusing on piloting their balloon and instead focus on celebrating their current position. This allows both Ash and the gang's and Skylar and his father's balloons to catch up as they emerge from the storm as well, leading Meowth to admire how Ash and the gang and Skylar and his father had managed to get out of the storm just with the help of their pure skill and Pokémon without any cheating, wishing that he, Jesse, and James could have done the same. When Jesse and James hear Meowth glazing Ash and the gang and Skylar and his father, it's then that they realize that they were about to lose their lead. So James proceeds to press yet another button on a controller connected to the Meowth balloon, which turns the burner into a missile launcher. Meowth tries to protest, knowing that Jesse and James were trying to cheat yet again, but James simply ignores him as he fires some missiles towards Ash and the gang's balloon. He tries to hit Skylar and his father's as well, but the missiles miss them. And hell, the missiles that even aimed for Ash and the gang's balloon didn't even hit the balloon, but instead just sends Cyndaquil flying away as he was carried away by the wind caused by the missile's speed. Thankfully, Ash manages to catch Cyndaquil before he goes off of the balloon, but then another missile hits Ash while he does this, injuring his shoulder, and causing Ash to collapse back into the balloon's basket, dropping Cyndaquil on his ass. At least with Cyndaquil back in the balloon, it was able to use Flamethrower again to reignite the burner, so the balloon was able to launch itself up and dodge more of Team Rocket's missiles. Upon seeing Ash injured, this pisses Pikachu off, so he goes to use Thunderbolt on Team Rocket to send them blasting off. However, James simply presses a button on the remote control connected to the Meowth balloon, which makes the jet speed up, letting Team Rocket escape, so the Thunderbolt didn't make contact. However, Team Rocket weren't able to speed away unchased for long, as since the burner was enough to keep Ash and the gang's balloon elevated, Ash realized that they didn't need Noctowl to fly the balloon anymore, so he commanded his Noctowl to let go of the balloon and let Pikachu hop on its back and fly towards Team Rocket so Pikachu could finish them off. So, Noctowl does as Ash commands and flies toward the Meowth balloon with Pikachu on its back. However, before Noctowl and Pikachu can reach the balloon, James notices them and promptly fires more missiles at them, and although Noctowl is able to evade the missiles for quite a long time, it eventually is tiring and therefore about to get hit. So, Skylar sends in his Firo to go help Noctowl by distracting Team Rocket, now relying on his burner to keep his balloon afloat as well. Upon seeing Firo, Team Rocket focus all of their efforts on it, firing missiles at Firo instead. Firo is able to dodge all of the missiles as well, and goes up to the Meowth balloon, using Drill Peck to destroy the jet as well as the missile launching machine. This, of course, stops the missiles from being fired, allowing Pikachu and Noctowl to get to the Meowth balloon, which was now unable to escape them fast enough since it had lost its jet. So, this allows Pikachu to get off a Thunderbolt on the Meowth balloon, exploding the balloon and sending Team Rocket blasting off. With Team Rocket now gone, it was time to conclude the race that was now just between Ash and the gang and Skylar and his father. So, they both made their way to the X target, with Skylar reminding Ash that in order for a person to win, they had to throw the ball with the tail-like thing at the end into the target. So, Skylar and Ash both threw the objects as the crowd who was watching the race cheered, as there had been a crowd waiting for the victor to arrive. Both Ash and Skylar's balls landed at the very same spot in the center of the target, giving them both bullseyes, which the announcer of the competition clarified that meant that Ash and Skylar had both tied, so they had 2 winners of the competition. There was one slight problem due to this, though, which was that the prize was only 1 engine, and there was 2 winners, so only one of the winners could get the prize. Ash and the gang decided to let Skylar and his father be the ones to take the engine prize, stating that they didn't use a balloon regularly anyways, so they didn't need it, and also adding that they had a great time, so winning didn't even matter to them, just as Skylar's father had suggested would be the case. Ash and the gang then leave to continue on their journey, as Skylar and his father thank them, as Ash and the gang look at all the balloons one last time, even the destroyed ones.